Amityville Horror House. This Dutch colonial sitting pretty on Ocean Avenue in Long Island, New York is perhaps the country's, and world's, most famous real haunted house. Haunted or not, the Amityville home has certainly witnessed plenty of horrors. On November 13, 1974, Louise and Ronald DeFeo Sr. and 4 of their children were killed inside the home. Their eldest daughter went unharmed, as did their eldest son, Ronald DeFeo Jr., and he was ultimately charged with the murders, though he never confessed to the horrific crime. A year after the brutal murders, the Lutz family moved into the house, which still housed much of the original furniture and decor from its previous tenants. Then, just 28 days after moving in with their 3 young children, the Lutzes fled the house in a panic. Not long after, they worked with author Jay Anson on the best-selling book-turned-hit movie, The Amityville Horror, which tells the dramatic and controversial tale of the demonic and unseen forces that drove them out. The Lutz's story is widely regarded as a hoax, but plenty of people still vehemently believe it's haunted, and that it was haunted even before the DeFeo family lived and died in it. Hotel Cecil. More cursed than haunted, downtown LA's Hotel Cecil got such a bad rap that it actually changed its name to stay unnamed. If you're a true crime and paranormal superfan, you've likely already heard of it. Where to begin? So many bad things have happened here. There's literally an entire Wikipedia page dedicated to its violent history. The first recorded death by suicide is in 1931, followed by a long string of similar deaths in 1932, 1934, 1937, 1938, 1939, and 1940. At some point in the 30s, one man was pinned to the exterior wall by a truck. A woman murdered her newborn in the building in 1944, and the pattern of suicides continued into the 60s. In 1962, a woman jumped from the 9th floor window and landed on a pedestrian, killing them both. It's worth noting that 2 of the women who died by suicide apparently jumped while their husbands were asleep in the room. In 1964, Tenant Goldie Osgood was brutally murdered, a crime which has remained unsolved. Next, in the 80s, the infamous serial killer Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, stayed at the hotel, and in the 1990s, Austrian serial killer Jack Unterweger lived there. Other weird things kept happening, but the weirdest is definitely the disappearance and death of 21-year-old traveler Elisa Lam. A few weeks after Lam went missing, her body was discovered in the rooftop water tank after visitors and tenants complained about a funky taste. They later found odd footage of her in the elevator from the night of her disappearance. It's difficult to make out what she's doing. It looks like she's either playing hide-and-seek with someone outside the elevator, or she's frightened and attempting to hide from someone, but the doors won't seem to shut. Authorities ruled the death accidental drowning, but because you need a key to access the roof, many suspect foul play. Winchester Mystery House. In 1886, an eccentric widow left her home in Connecticut for California's rural Santa Clara Valley to start a new life after the tragic loss of several family members. She wasn't the average widow, she was Sarah Winchester, the millionaire heiress whose fortune was derived from the gun that won the West, an increasingly controversial truth. Once in the Bay Area, during the height of spiritualism and well before the 19th Amendment, Winchester managed her own finances and acted on a passion for architecture and design by overseeing the never-ending construction project of a rambling mansion in San Jose. She named the rambling property Lanada Villa, which she interpreted as house on flat land, but today, it's better known as the Winchester Mystery House. Her reclusive lifestyle, along with the restrictive gender norms of the era and the blood money she was associated with, caused neighbors and the local press to speculate, and legends quickly began to swirl about the mysterious woman and her bewildering house. Though it was a modern marvel at the time, with indoor plumbing, multiple elevators, a hot shower, and central heating, the mansion was appraised as having no value due to doors that opened to nothing but thin air, staircases that lead straight into the ceiling, and its maze of labyrinthine hallways. Legends began swirling, speculating that Winchester's bizarre architectural choices were an attempt to rid the home of unwelcome spirits of the dead killed by the Winchester rifle. but defenders swear she didn't have a superstitious bone in her body. Regardless, it's possible that Winchester herself still haunts the halls of the house-turned-museum today. S.K. Pierce Mansion. Massachusetts has no shortage of haunted mansions, it seems, and the S.K. Pierce Victorian is one of the state's eeriest. The original occupant, Sylvester Pierce, had just started making his fortune in the furniture business when he built this home for himself, his son, and his wife, Susan. As a man about town, he hosted many notable people in his 7,000-square-foot home throughout the years, including President Calvin Coolidge, Betty Davis, and Norman Rockwell. Only a week after moving into the home, Susan fell ill and passed away from a mysterious bacterial disease. A year later, he remarried Ellen, a woman 30 years his junior, and had 2 more children. Years later, when both Sylvester and Ellen had passed away, his sons embarked on a fiery feud about the property as well as the furniture company. But the Great Depression swept in and made their choice easier since the company basically went bankrupt. The youngest son, Edward, was given control of the home when he turned it into a boarding house. It became a hotspot for illicit activities, including the murders and sudden, tragic deaths of several occupants, according to local lore. As a result of these violent ends, guests have reported every kind of haunting imaginable, from visions of apparitions to flying objects, disembodied sounds, pressure, temperature drops, and more. Jean Harlow House. Los Angeles is one of the best destinations for haunted house hunting, and this Bavarian-style home in Beverly Hills has a particularly gruesome history. In 1932, it was home to the iconic actress Jean Harlow and her abusive husband, Paul Byrne, who shot himself in the head while standing in front of the mirror. Their butler discovered him and called MGM instead of the police, so there were tons of rumors that it wasn't actually suicide. Many suspected Byrne's ex-girlfriend, a suspicion exacerbated by her jumping off a boat to her death a couple of days later. Jean moved out after his death but died only a few years later at the age of 26. But wait, it gets creepier. In 1963, celebrity hairstylist Jay Sebring bought the home and lived there with his girlfriend, Sharon Tate, until she left him for Roman Polanski. They were still friends and remained so until both of them were murdered by the Charles Manson cult. Tate was the same age as Harlow when she passed. But back to when the couple lived in the Harlow house. Tate told several friends of creepy occurrences in the home and even mentioned it in interviews. For example, once, when she was sleeping in the master bedroom alone, she saw a creepy little man. Her friends say she believed it to be Paul Byrne's ghost. She was so freaked out when she saw the alleged ghost that she ran out of the room and then saw a hanging shadowy corpse with its throat slit in the hallway. There are also stories about 2 other people dying in the swimming pool over the years. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and stay tuned for another episode tomorrow.